But I want to thank those of you here for coming and getting the opportunity and taken the opportunity to listen to Dr. Dennis Kimbro. Dennis and I have known each other for, I don't know how long it is now. He knew me before I was married, and all the way through the process, getting married, then 1 kid, 2 kids, 3. I knew him when his 3 daughters were all junior high. One was in junior high. I mean, they weren't in high school. I know they were all in high school. They were very young, and so I've kind of watched Dennis grow. I first really became a huge fan of Dennis when I had a chance to read the book Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, because I think that so much of what we accomplish in life is all about our thought. And really, it was books like that. I had a chance to meet with Dennis and read his book and meet folks like Les, allowed me to realize, as I tell people, that I was not alone. You know, sometimes you grow up in a negative environment or around negative people who don't believe, you think, okay, maybe I am crazy. If I think I can do this, if I think I can do this, if I think I can do that. But I learned through reading books and subsequent relationship we've developed that indeed I was not crazy. That maybe I was the sane one for saying I can do it. We can go forward. One of the things that I try to do is to infuse my kids with that kind of attitude. Try to infuse them with the attitude that as you think, so can you be. And it was interesting, my son now calls it Dad's adventure stories. Whenever I tell him a story about, that's leading to a lesson, he says, Dad, is this one of your adventure stories? And I'll say, yes, it is. He said, okay. Then they sit down as if they're at the movie theater or something like that. So Dennis, he has quite a story. And those of you who may not know, I believe there were times when he was getting started, when he decided he wanted to write a book. He wanted to write a book about black success. There were times when I believe his power was cut off. Am I right, Dennis? The phone was cut off, power was cut off, but he always believed. He believed that he could write a book that would empower people. And the rest is 4 or 5 books later, who knows how many speeches, audiences, hundreds of thousands of people. But it is really one of my great pleasures to be able to bring Dennis up on the stand and let him talk to you about what keeps us standing. All right?
Darryl, you're too much. Here we are in Vegas, and we're completely and totally relaxed. Just a little different than last week when I was at MegaFest, but the same heart, the same spirit is here. January 4th, 1999. I received this letter from this kind soul, as Darryl alluded to in the introduction. For 5 years, I went around the country and I asked 1,000 black grandmothers if you could write one letter to your children or to the next generation, what would you tell them about life? I like to think that I got letters from every type of black grandmother under the sun. Doctors and lawyers to those who have a 3rd grade education. High school dropouts to those women, Ph.Ds from Harvard. Grandmothers whose children and grandchildren are thriving and surviving. To one black grandmother from Waterloo, Iowa. Her name was Flora Kelly. She sent me a letter. And the day that she sent me a letter, she has 7 children. 5 are incarcerated in prison. All of them hoping to share their thoughts, their ideas, and what could make a difference. Well, I received this letter January 4th, 1999 from Hampton, Virginia. And this kind soul entitled her letter, "Where there's hope, there's life." At some point in life, you'll be faced with a crisis that seems so overwhelming, it'll shake you to the core. A loved one dies, a marriage crumbles, disease strikes, a child goes astray, or life savings is squandered. But this I know, into each life a little rain is going to fall. In June 1992, I was diagnosed with cancer. Following surgery, I faced months of chemotherapy. Each treatment lasted 4 hours and left me so weak I needed assistance just to function. I had lost my appetite as well as weight, and my hair, well, that came out in clumps. Being bald was the least of my worries. I had to learn to inject myself as part of the treatment to keep my white blood cell count up. To be honest, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I had nearly given up hope. But my hour of need, the Lord spoke to me as he so often does, and I thought, this is not the end. I mean, what can cancer do? Cancer cannot control my outlook. Cancer cannot steal my faith. Cancer cannot destroy my peace. Cancer cannot erase my memories. Cancer cannot invade my spirit, and it will not shatter my hope. Where there's hope, there's life, and I choose to live. I thank God to be able to wake up each morning and move under my own power, but if I didn't, well, I'm confident I could handle it. There's still hope, not for me, then for someone else. I would instruct my doctors to give my eyes to the boy who cannot see, to give my ears to the little girl who cannot hear, to give my heart to the woman who's known nothing but pain, and to give my kidneys to the child chained to dialysis. Regardless of your circumstances, you have so much to hope for. Come to the edge, he said. They said, we are afraid. Come to the edge, he said. They came, he pushed them, and they flew. Let others lead small lives, but not you. Let others cry over small hurts, but not you. Let others leave their future in someone else's hands, but not you. My mind goes back to that story of the preacher and the soap maker. Preacher and the soap maker were walking a little country town, walking the streets, and soon they encountered two men in the streets fighting. And they were at each other's throats and using foul language. And the soap maker turns to the preacher and says, "Preacher, what good is religion after all? I mean, just think of all the Sunday sermons you have given. Just think of all the Wednesday night Bible studies you have led. Just think of all the auxiliary boards that you serve on. And here we have these two individuals. As soon as we turn our back, they'll probably be at each other's throat. Listen at the language. After all, preacher, what good is religion anyway?" And the preacher didn't say a thing, and they continued to move on, and they walked. Pretty soon, they came across a little girl playing in the street. And after playing outside all day, her little white dress, cute as a little button, was muddy, soiled, dirty. And the preacher turns to the soap maker and says, "Soap maker, what good is soap? I mean, just think of all the detergent your manufacturing company has, produced. Just think of all the soap and detergent you've sold in all, the grocery stores throughout the country, Publix, Food Lion, A&P, whatever. Preacher, here we have soap maker, here we have this little girl after playing all day. Look at her, she's dirty, she's soiled, she's filthy. What good is soap anyway?" Well, the soap maker, I guess the point was driven home. He finally turned to the preacher and says, "Preacher, that's not a fair question. Soap won't do you any good unless you use it. And I can stand up here and I can tell you all the traits and qualities that I learned from all of my books. I don't care whether it's Think and Grow Rich or Black Choice or What Makes a Great Great or What Keeps Me Standing. What good is it unless we use some of the principles that we learn? Within Think and Grow Rich or Black Choice and What Makes a Great Great, you name them, I probably interviewed them. I got a chance to sit down with all of them, from Condoleezza Rice to Ron Brown, from Maynard Jackson to Janetta Cole. Now she's the president of Bennett College. I mean, men and women, high-ranking men and women through all walks of life. I flew into Las Vegas, flying from Atlanta out to Vegas, first class, seated right behind a man that I had interviewed more than a decade ago, and that was Don King. And when we got off the plane and went to baggage claim, I said, "Don, do you remember me?" He said, "Yeah, I remember when you were in Cleveland and you interviewed me and this, that, and everything." Trying to find the keys, the traits of success and whatever. No matter who I interviewed, I found four common chords in all these men and women. Number one, they dreamed big dreams. They had a dream, a passion, something they desperately wanted to accomplish in their life. And I remember a letter that I got from Lucille Singleton in What Keeps Me Standing. Lucille Singleton, here, this black woman, retired as a domestic, age 70. Imagine cleaning the homes of wealthy people in New York. She retires at age 70, doesn't know what she wants to do for the rest of her life except one thing. She wants to join the New York Roadrunners Club, and as the runners come by, hand them their water. And she goes to the New York Roadrunners Club, one of the monthly meetings, and they're there. And the members say, "Miss Singleton, we are honored that you're a member of the organization, and we, very grateful that you hand us the bottled water. Sometimes you even hold the finish line tape. But you know what? You need to take a proactive approach. You need to really get involved in this organization. As a matter of fact, you need to run one of these races." And she says, her rebuttal to them, and says, "Young man, look at this body. You know how many floors this body has scrubbed? You know how many shirts and blouses and dresses these arms and hands have ironed? This body isn't going anywhere." Well, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and she continues to go to the monthly meetings. 1 year goes by, 2 years goes by, 3, 4, 5, 6 years go by. And at age 76, she finally gives in. I guess they finally wore her down where she gives in and she decides to run her first race. The New York Marathon, 26.2 miles. In the letter that she writes to me, 8 hours and 10 minutes. And she says, guess what? I didn't even come in last place. But she had a quote in her letter that I use regardless of who the audience is. She says, so many times people make commitments until real life shows up. So number one, they dream big dreams. Number two, they were inner directed versus outer directed. In other words, they weren't so quick to believe well-meaning friends and family members who said, you can't do this, you can't do that. They walked to a beat of a different drummer. And that's why the old poet Robert Frost was so apropos when he wrote years ago, two roads diverge in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by. In other words, you are unique. You cannot succeed being like everybody else. You must take that lonely road. And living in a free and open society, living in a capitalist economy, what are we talking about? We're talking about differentiation. And sooner or later, you've got to ask the question to you, what is so different and unique about you? I mean, the bottom line is, if you live to be a normal life, 70, 75 years old, that's only 25,000 days on earth. So the question begs asking, what are you going to do with the rest of life that you have left? What is so different and unique about you? What are your gifts? What are your talents? What do you bring to the table? Point number three, they dedicated themselves to lifelong learning. And make no mistake about it, we don't go to school one period of our life. We're in school every day of our life. And we can learn from anybody. Just like when I learned from the individuals that I interviewed, I learned from these, 1,000 black grandmothers that sent me letters. Readers are leaders. We live in a society that's predicated on the fact that if you want to earn more, I suggest that you learn more. You don't go to school one period of your life. You're in school every day of your life. Life is lesson, so you confront life as if you're about to have a major exam. And it doesn't take much to succeed. Why? Because the average individual won't take the time to take the information. And look at the data. 58% of adults never read a book after high school. 600,000 words in the English language. The average adult in our society uses the same 1,200 over and over again. Only 3% of Americans have a library card. Now, when I fly back to my fair state, my home state of Georgia, you find me a house in Georgia that sells for $250,000. You know what you find out? You find a library built into it. You see, the bigger the house, the more personal volumes they have in the library. But the smaller the house, the bigger the television set. So what am I telling you? I'm telling you the same thing that I tell my hot-shot, know-it-all MBA students because I teach at Clark Atlanta University School of Business. Either read or learn to fail gracefully. And speaking of failure, point number 4, these men and women flat out refuse to fail. I'm not saying they didn't fail. What I'm saying is that failure was never a viable option for them. There's a quote in my first book from Confucius that reads, a man or woman is great not because they haven't failed. A man or woman is great because failure has not stopped them. You see, it's never a question of can you succeed. It's always a question of will you succeed? Will you pay the price? Will you go the extra mile? Will you believe in yourself when no one else will? I mean, I want you to be like Sammy. Sammy is 8 years old in the 3rd grade, painting a picture at his desk. And the teacher comes by and says, Sammy, what are you doing? Sammy says, I'm painting a picture of God. Teacher says, well, no one knows what God looks like. Sammy says, they will in a minute. You've got to believe in yourself when no one else will. Perseverance and persistence, it's the level of belief that you have in yourself. It's the level of belief that you have in yourself. So point number 1, get a vision. Get a big dream. Everything happens to you twice in life. First the inner, then the outer. First the thought, then the thing. First the mental, and then the physical. And to the extent that you control what goes on the inside of your life, you'll control what goes on the outside. You must have a vision. There's not an individual in this room right now. You took out a sheet of paper and you sat in your home, your apartment, wherever, and you wrote down everything on that legal sheet of paper that you want to have, do, or become. There's not an individual seated here right now that couldn't hit the majority of those items in 5 years, all of them within 10. But it starts with a vision. We don't live in a society that is divided between rich versus poor, black versus white, liberal conservative, Republican Democrat, male versus female. No. But we do live in a society that is divided between dreamer versus non-dreamer. And people get in trouble in life not because they wanted too much. They get in trouble in life because they settled for too little. Now, you live in a capitalistic economy, right? Capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism is not a dirty word. Now, Darryl, stood up here and gave me a nice glowing introduction. Yeah, I wrote Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice. Hey, the book has been out for more than a decade right now. And people say to me, oh, man, Dr. Kimbro, it was easy for you. You're in Atlanta, blah, 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 this, that, and everything. When that book was released, we weren't ready to embrace that as a race. We weren't ready to embrace that as a race. You doubt me? Go get a copy of it. Go get a copy of the paperback and look to see who endorsed the book. And I'll never forget, one of the guys that really wanted this book to hit a home run was Harvey Mackay. I call him my Jewish godfather. Harvey Mackay in Minneapolis, Minnesota, wrote, Swim with the Sharks, Beware the Naked Man Who Offers You a Shirt, the networking genius. And my publisher at the time was Random House Ballantine Books, and they flew me up to Minneapolis, and they said, we want you to spend some time with Harvey Mackay, see how he does it, blah, blah, blah. So I was there in his office. He has his own envelope company. And I was up there in his office, and he sat me in this room right next to his office. He says, Dennis, I'm going to put you in this room for an hour. I just want you to think. He says, after an hour, I want you to give me 40 names of individuals that we're going to send this book to for endorsements, because I really believe in it. I think that this book is needed, and it is so special. Now, you go back to the early 1990s, and you imagine all the key players that were on the national scene in Black America. And I wrote down these names on a list, and I gave them to Harvey. 40, just 40. I think I came up with 60. And I just gave them. And then Harvey looked at him and says, yeah, that's great, blah, 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 and then sent it to my publisher. Not one would endorse it. Not one would endorse it. Just imagine who was the mayor of New York at the time. My publisher sent him a copy of the book. He sent it back. He didn't even want it. You've got to believe in yourself when no one else will. Capitalism is not a dirty word. You take the word capitalism, write it on a piece of paper. C-A-P-I-T-A-L-I-S-M. Take the Latin derivative of the word capitalism. C-A-P-U-T. Caput. What does it mean in Latin? It means head. What's the one thing you must use in order to survive in a free and open society? You must use your head. The time for thinkers has come. Master, we fished all day, but we haven't caught a thing. Well, this time cast your nets on the right side. Not right versus left, but right in terms of your thinking. So what is right in terms of your thinking? Go read the Holy Book. The Bible is a very old book, right? But it's still ahead of its time. So you go ahead and you open up the Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth, right? Then you drop down, 31 lines? He says, all was good. All was good. In other words, I made this for you, to have life and to live it abundantly. But you're never going to have it, because God's no respecter of persons, right? What do you mean no respecter of persons? Everybody gets an idea. Are you going to act on yours? Are you going to act? When are you going to use your talents and gifts and ability that you have been given? And it all starts with a vision. It all starts with the level of belief that you have in yourself. For years, Magic Johnson, when he played basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers, he wore Converse shoes. True story. I didn't get a chance to interview Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan's personal attorney took me to lunch in Chicago and said, listen, it's the basketball season. Half the time, I can't even get a hold of my client. But will you settle for me? I said, sure. So there I am. He took me to the swankiest restaurant in Chicago. We're off in the corner in the dark because we don't want to be bothered by anybody. And I'm just firing questions left and right. True story, because twice Nike brought me in to speak. 1984, Magic Johnson plays basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers, and he wears Converse shoes. And he begged Converse, a little small shoe company outside Boston. He begged them. He said, why don't you guys develop a gym shoe and name it after me? Converse shoes. I said, that's the dumbest thing in the world we ever heard of. Who in the world's going to buy a gym shoe named after an athlete? Phil Knight of Nike shoes could see from a distance what Converse couldn't see up close. He gets a hold of the Chicago Bulls schedule, and he picks up the phone up in Beaverton, Oregon, and he calls Michael Jordan in Chicago. Jordan picks up the phone, and he says, who is this? He said, this is Phil Knight of Nike shoes. You know what Jordan said? How did you get my number? Listen, don't worry about it. I got the Chicago Bulls schedule in front of me, and I see when you guys are coming to Portland to play the Trailblazers. Jordan says, so? He said, I also see that you have an off date behind that game. Jordan says, well, what do you have in mind? He says, do us a big favor. Instead of flying back to Chicago, come by our Beaverton headquarters. We want to take a mold of your foot. Jordan says, why? He said, we're thinking about developing a gym shoe and calling it the Air Jordan. But even Phil Knight suffered from myopia. All Phil Knight wanted out of the deal was $10 million, enough to recoup his opportunity costs, enough to recoup the first production run of Air Jordans. First production run of Air Jordans, $150 million. When Michael Jordan retired the first time before he came to play basketball with the Wizards, he retired as the third largest sporting good apparel company in the world. Number one is Nike, number two was Reebok, number three was Air Jordan. 1 year alone, he earned more than $250 million in sales just off of his cologne. So what is the dream that you harbor in your mind? What is the vision that you have in your mind right now? And what are you going to do with the rest of life that you have left? Point number 2, commit yourself to personal excellence. Don't be average. Hey, Darryl, what you did upstairs, man, fantastic. Great stories about these individuals. And I remember when I interviewed Edwin Moses. Edwin Moses was just profiled upstairs. I remember the day that I interviewed Edwin Moses, world record holder, 400-meter high hurdles. Edwin Moses had one dream, one vision. In 1984, he wanted to hear the national anthem, bend his head and shoulders down, have the gold medallion placed around his neck, and be crowned an Olympic champion in his event. And just like Darryl Mobley said, yes, he ran more than 300 races without a defeat. He knew that one weekend in 1984, if he ran 3 more races to the best of his ability, his dream of becoming an Olympic champion would become real. You talk about a commitment to excellence. First weekends, going into the second week of the 84 Summer Olympic Games. They start the track events. And Edwin Moses, in the first heat, halfway through the race, blows everybody's doors off. 2 more races to go. Next night, the secondary heat. Halfway through the race, everybody's looking at the back of his singlet. 1 more race to go. You talk about a commitment to excellence. And after he wins the secondary heat, he goes out to a track in South Central Los Angeles by himself, just to go through his paces. And the track coach, who's responsible for the U.S. team, follows Moses out there. And he watches Moses go around the track. Looks at the stopwatch, looks at Moses. Looks at the stopwatch, looks at Moses. Senses something wrong, throws the stopwatch down, blows the whistle, and says, Edwin, come here, something's not right. What are you doing? Moses runs up to his coach and goes, Coach, that's what I've been meaning to tell you. You know how I'm used to running 13 steps per hurdle? I just want to see how it would feel if I ran 12 steps per hurdle. And his coach goes ballistic. He says, brother, why in the world would you want to monkey around with success? Edwin, you've already won more than 300 races. You win 1 more race tomorrow, your dream of becoming an Olympic champion will become real. Edwin, you're already the best in the world. Moses looks at his coach and says, yeah, coach, I may be the best in the world, but I want to see if I'm the best that I can be. Are you the best that you can be? This is no plaything. When are you going to find your area of excellence? You tell me, when are you going to find your own personal area of excellence? And you don't even know how to find it. Go read What Makes a Great Great. These are the 4 keys. Number 1, what do you love to do? What do you have a passion for? What can you throw your whole heart and soul into? Question number 2, what would you do for free? If no one ever paid you a dime, if no one ever gave you financial reward for your efforts, what would you do for free? Because when you're doing what you love to do and you would do it for free, your work is your play. And if your work is your play, you'll never work a day in your life. So you think I'm standing up here at the podium speaking to you. No, my mind is back in the classroom. So I got the summers off. I know come, September, I'll be back in the classroom. What would you do for free? What is your work, your play? I remember when I went up to Chicago, got a chance to interview John Johnson of Ebony Magazine, and I interviewed him twice. And I said, Mr. Johnson, if you weren't publishing Ebony Magazine, what would you be doing? And he has a mock copy of the next cover on his desk, and he goes just like this. I love magazines. I love the way they feel. I love the colors. I love the textures. I love the smell. How can you beat an individual like that? You tell me. I went to New York, sat across the table from Walter Turnbull, Dr. Walter Turnbull, founder of the Harlem Boys Choir. And I said to myself, Dr. Turnbull, I'm going to ask you a question that you're very rarely asked. He says, fire away. I said, what is wealth? I mean, what is wealth to you? And with tears coming out of his eyes, he says, wealth is hearing the voices of my boys. Question number 3, what is your area of unfair competitive advantage? In other words, what comes easy to you but difficult to somebody else? I got 3 daughters. All of them got different areas of unfair competitive advantage. What is yours? I mean, look at me. The Lord didn't make me 7 foot tall. I'm not like Shaquille O'Neal. I can't block a shot, dunk a basketball. I can't rip down a backboard. But you know what? I know that I can write. And I know that I can communicate effectively. And if you look at my evaluations last spring, I know that I can teach. I'd be a fool not to exploit that. What comes easy to you but difficult to somebody else? And if you can't answer those 3 questions, go to those individuals who you respect and admire and ask them, what do you see me as? What do you think, I would be good at doing? And this is the way that I do in my MBA class, the day in which you find your area of excellence, the one reason why you were placed on this earth. In my MBA class, I bring champagne. And we go around and we have a toast. Why? Because when you are the best at what you do, you never have to worry about income. And you never have to worry about employment. Why? The marketplace will seek you out. The marketplace will seek you out. So when are you going to find your area of excellence? Point number 3, go serve somebody. Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. Make a difference in somebody else's life. Be excellent. Go serve in all that you do. Booker T. Washington said years ago, overfill your place. Start where you are with what you have, knowing that what you have is plenty enough. We talked about Eddie Robinson upstairs. And I remember the day in which I got both of them on the same day. Don't you know I got Eddie Robinson and Doug Williams, interviewed them both. Thank you, Father. On the same day. Doug Williams at the time was the current, coach at Grambling. And I said to him, what did Coach Rob teach you about life? I mean, let's get away from the football field. He said to me, I probably learned more about life from this man than any course I took at Grambling. I said, well, give me an example. He said, well, if you play football for Coach Rob, everybody knows that practice started at 3:45 prompt. I said, so? He said, everybody knew if you were more than 2 minutes late to practice, you had to run stadium steps. I said, no big deal. He said, well, one day Coach Rob was more than 2 minutes late to practice. And he huddled the entire team together for more than 2 hours. And we watched this 50-some-odd-year-old man in the sweltering Louisiana heat run stadium steps for the entire practice. See, this is civilian discipline, military discipline, Eddie Robinson discipline. So I sat down with Coach Rob, Eddie Robinson, Grambling Football Tigers. And I said to him, Coach Rob, you've done a lot in your life. I mean, you've accomplished a lot in life. I mean, what number is nearest and dearest to your heart? I said, is it the 81% graduation rate you had when you were at Grambling? Is it the 240 Grambling athletes that you sent to the NFL? How about, is it the 9 black college championships you won when you were at Grambling? Is it the 4 Grambling alums that are in the NFL Hall of Fame? I said, what number is nearest and dearest to your heart? Is it the 408 victories you won when you were at Grambling? What number is nearest and dearest to your heart? He looked at me, took a step back, stroked his face, and he said, young man, none of those. He said, the number that is nearest and dearest to my heart is one wife, 53 years. Just a sidebar. Darryl, man, what you are doing is, woo! I got this time last week, I was speaking to the men at MegaFest, and I didn't hold back. I mean, what you are doing with Family Digest is critically and sorely needed. You know that? You know what you are doing with Family Digest? If we really understood the data, why this is critically important, because a race of individuals can never rise higher than the relationship between men on one side and women and children on the other. You can never go higher than that relationship. Just like you never saw Superman and Clark Kent in the same image together, did you? You never saw them together in the same image. You never see black men and children in the same image together, do you? Why would you? You got 70% divorce rate. I mean, why would you, Darryl? When right now, 35% of black women between the ages of 18 to 34 will never be married in their lifetime. I mean, why would you? When right now, you got 250,000 more black males in prison than you do in college. I mean, why would you? I mean, you think about it. Right now, if the same trend continues, black males born today, 1 out of 3 will be incarcerated. That's that relationship. It's got to change. It's got to change. Why? Your very existence is built on it. And everybody is scared to death to talk about it, but not you. Because you know the truth. And what is the truth? What came first, the chicken or the egg? You tell me. Somebody. Don't be shy. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Neither. God came first. P.D.'s mother has 3 sons. Tic, Tac, and... P.D.'s mother has 3 sons. Tic, Tac, and... P.D.'s mother has 3 sons. Tic, Tac, and P.D. In other words, never allow what you know to stop you from learning more. So get a vision, commit yourself to excellence, go serve somebody. Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. Remember, I went to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, one of the last interviews I had for my 3rd book, sat at the feet of a little old washerwoman, Osceola McCarty. Everybody laughed at this little old washerwoman, started working at age 8, didn't quit to age 84, saved every dime that came by her hand. If you'd have been there, you might have laughed too. And there I was in her little modest home, little old tiny, never hurt a fly in her life, Osceola McCarty. After nearly 80 years of work, she amassed a personal fortune in excess of $250,000. She gets a phone call from a banker one day, and the banker says, Ms. McCarty, as a senior level VP at this bank, I am obligated to ask you the following question. But before I do, it's no secret, you do have a sizable investment at our institution. And yes, sweetheart, you are getting up in years. The question begs asking, what do you want done with the resources and the untimely nature of your death? And she says, sir, that's not a problem. I'm thinking about that. He says, you have? I said, yeah. I want you to take the first $100,000, give it to my church. And take the remainder, more than $150,000, give it to worthy and deserving black college students at this school. He said, what school? She said, the school right here in town. He said, you mean to tell me the University of Southern Mississippi? She said, yes, sir. The school she was barred from attending because of her race. The 6 hours that I spent with her, she sat in her rocking chair, just rocking back and forth. holding that old beat-up, tattered, covered Bible, scotch tape to keep Corinthians from falling out. And I sat at her feet taking notes with both hands. I said, Miss McCarty, what is greatness? What is success? She said, young man, do as much as you can for all that you can. Ted Turner, the founder of TBS, the billionaire himself, right? He hears about this woman's story. He immediately calls a press conference in Atlanta, Georgia to announce he's giving away $1 billion. He said, if she can give away every dime that came by her hand, I can at least give away $1 billion. She doesn't get a letter. She gets a phone call from then President Bill Clinton begging her to come to Washington, D.C. He said, I want to bestow on you the highest honor I can give to a private citizen. Scared to death of flying, she takes a train from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, all the way up to Washington, D.C. Here's an individual, living proof there's a God. Never been to McDonald's drive-through window in her life. She gets to Washington, D.C. She uses the public restroom. Didn't even know what the hand blower was for. First time in her life, she spends a night in a hotel room before she checks out the next morning. She makes it to bed before she goes. The National Press Club in Washington, D.C., they have a luncheon for her in her honor. After everybody eats, and now they're eating their dessert, drinking the coffee, a journalist runs up to her and says, Miss McCarty, how does it feel being a philanthropist? She said, what is that? And you can't make a difference in your community? I mean, I tell my students, even when I'm teaching undergrads, I will do anything and everything for you, except I will not allow you to fail. I will do anything and everything for you, but I will not allow you to fail. What's the greatest gift a teacher, professor can give his or her students? A positive example. So what's the bottom line? There's a lot of love in the word no. This is grandmother's told me. There's a lot of love in the word no. I love you, but no, you're not going to come in my classroom late. I love you, but no, you're not going to wear those pants dragging off you like that. I'm sorry. I love you, but no, you can't turn in your homework in this type of condition. There's a lot of love in the word no. And as one of the grandmothers told me in one of her letters, talking about our young black males, you got so many black males out here who haven't heard the following two phrases. Number one, they haven't heard, boy, go get me a switch. And they haven't heard, just wait till your father gets home. Make a difference in your community. What's the greatest gift? The greatest gift is purpose. The greatest gift is purpose. The greatest gift is life. We are only on this planet for two reasons and two reasons only. Number one, spiritual growth. I did not say religion. And number two, to find your life's purpose. And you got to think about the question, when it is all said and done, what will others say about you? When are you going to put your fingerprints on life and prove that you were here? Tell me. And I don't care, you go to all the top B schools. Go get an MBA from Harvard. Some of the sections that you get in, one of the assignments that they love to give out at Harvard, the first, when you get your cases and you meet with your cohort, one of the first assignments you'll probably be given at Harvard in some of the sections is to write your own eulogy. Every now and then I do it in one of my classes. Go to the Stern School at NYU. Get an MBA from the Stern School. First assignment you will be given is to write your own obituary. And they tell you at the Stern School, when you die, make sure that your obituary appears on the pages of the New York Times. Why? Because only people who are noteworthy get their obituary on the pages of the New York Times. When are you going to use your wealth that the Creator has given you? And make no mistake about it, 10 different forms of wealth. You don't even know that. See, people say to me, oh man, money. Money is only one form of wealth. And money is not even number one. What's the number one form of wealth? Knowledge. Why? This can't grow till this grows. This can't grow until this grows. Second form of wealth, hey, in the correct vocation. Make sure you're in the right job, doing the right thing you're supposed to do, whether entrepreneur or corporate climber or whatever. You're in the correct vocation. You'll never be able to do what you love to do if you're, hey, drudgery, man, blah, blah, blah. Look, I've been all over the world. This is the only country on the face of the earth that says, thank God it's Friday. Come with me when I go to Singapore, the Pacific Rim. Back in February, March, I was in Iceland. What do they say over there? Thank God it's Monday. Completely engaged in their labor of love. 10 different forms of wealth. We don't have time to go on all of them. But number 10 is what? Confidence and charisma. Confidence and people ask me all the time, Dr. Kimbro, of all the people that you interviewed, man, who were the most? They want to know, in other words, who walked tall? In your estimation, who are the ones that really confidence and charisma? What is Maya Angelou's claim to fame? You tell me. That she wrote a poem and Bill Clinton was read at his inauguration several years ago? I mean, that's well and good, yeah, but that's not her claim to fame. Maya Angelou's claim to fame is that she was the first black female streetcar conductor in San Francisco. Did you know that? 1969, first black female streetcar conductor, San Francisco. And if you ever got on one of the streetcars, the one that she was driving and operating, she let you know it was hers. Yeah, how you doing, baby? Come right in here. You just sit down. What, you got a doctor's appointment? Everybody, she got a doctor. Baby, everything gonna be all right. Job interview. He got a job. Y'all pray he gets this job because he needs it, blah, blah, blah. All right, y'all hold on now. We're going to get you there safely. Hold on. She ran it like her name was on the side of it. Look at her now. When are you going to walk tall? When are you going to make a difference in somebody else's life? Remember when I got a chance, I guess I interviewed her for about 4 hours, Janetta Cole. She was president of Spelman College. Now she's the president of Bennett College. Blew me away. And I remember she said to me, I asked her, I said, what is greatness, what is success? She said, show me somebody content with mediocrity, and I'll show you somebody destined to fail. The reason right now why I always wear a handkerchief in my jacket pocket to my suit, Maynard Jackson. Whenever he would see me, and I got so many chances to interview him and spend quality time, he said, Dennis, when are you going to finish your suits? I said, what do you mean, Mr. Mayor? Didn't I tell you not to call me Mr. Mayor? Yes, Mr. Mayor. I always wanted to be called Maynard. Just me. You give me pocket handkerchief. No, you finish that suit. Walk tall. I remember I went to Washington, D.C., finally got a chance to interview the man himself, Ron Brown, before his tragic flight. His administrative assistant came out there and said, young man, have a seat. Secretary will be out shortly. And I waited and I got my little notes and got everything together and everything. Bam! Here he comes. All 6'3", not an ounce of body fat. Just like he stepped off the pages of GQ magazine, stuck out his hand. He said, young man, what can I do for you? I said, Mr. Secretary, let's talk about leadership and achievement. He said, leadership? That's something I know a little bit about. There's only 2 requirements of leadership. Number 1, the price of leadership is always loneliness. And number 2, you can never be concerned what other people think, say, or do. And after interviewing, Janetta Cole, we developed a relationship, and she invited me to a dinner that she was having in the honor of the Board of Trustees. And let me show you how you can make a difference in somebody else's life. And there they have this swanky dinner. They got all the Board of Trustees of Spelman College, all the beautiful people around the country, virtual who's who in there. And there I was, man, just looking at, man, do you really know where you are? Look at these folks, blah, blah, blah. Put her in a wheelchair. She turns out to be Barbara Jordan. Tell her she can't write. Show you Toni Morrison. Tell her she can't lead. She becomes Janetta Cole. Deny him adequate startup capital, and he becomes Darryl Mobley. Any questions? You are kind. I mean, you're exactly right when dealing with children. I mean, whatever. They only care about two things. Number one, were you there? Were you there? And number two, did you care? Were you there and did you care? And it's like you said, approval. It's called psychic income. Two types of income, right? Number one is real income. Ladies, what you have in your purse, what I have in my pocket. Real income is what we take to the marketplace exchange for goods and services. Real income is what we're given the 15th and 30th of every month, every other Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. That's real income. It's a different type of income, too. Psychic income. Psychic income, pat on the back. Psychic income, handshake from your boss. Psychic income, the parent around the child. I love you. I am honored to have the same last name that you have. I tell my father every day, I tell my granddaughter, can you believe the Lord chose me to be your grandfather? I'm honored. Now, what does that do to the self-esteem of the child? Yeah. And everything, many of the problems that we have, that's self-esteem issues. That's all that is. I mean, you're exactly right. But you got to tell the children the past is no predictor of the future. And I'm not buying into Benet, with, hereditary environment, blah, blah, blah. Imagine you're in a speedboat, and you're out in the Pacific or you're in the Atlantic, and you're in the speedboat. And the speedboat is going forward 100 miles an hour. What's behind the speedboat? The waves in the wake, right? Well, what's behind the waves in the wake doesn't determine where the boat is going. That's what's left behind. That's just left behind. Doesn't determine where I'm going. I mean, you decide that. You are the individual that decides that. Now, you can get around all those experts, and they can say, oh, man, isn't it a shame, his father was an alcoholic, blah, 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 this, that, and everything. Come on. And you can learn from anybody. I tell people all the time, you know what my mother did for a living? My mother was a nanny. She took care of wealthy kids in the neighborhood. I mean, not in our neighborhood. She took a wealthy, people live on the other side of town. She did that. My mother didn't go to school past the 7th grade. Now, here I am, Ph.D. from Northwestern. And my mother didn't go to school past 7th grade. But that woman would correct my English. You can learn from anybody. I mean, it's not so much of what you say, it's how you say it. I remember when I got a chance to interview Alvin Passant, just a quickie. And I said, I asked him the same question I asked all the hundreds of others. What is greatness, blah, blah, blah. And he says, Black America will never be great until it begins to take care of its children. Now, if suppose somebody got a hold of that, they could run with it. Like many of these grandmothers, man, they said the same thing Cosby said, but it's how they said it. Much of what I told you today was, taken out of my 4th book. It's how you say it. So, I mean, the fact of the matter, I believe his intentions and his heart is in the right place. I just think it's unfortunate that some people ran with it. I mean, everything that I've said in many of my 4th books, I say the same thing. I mean, America's not going to come to its knees because you're mad. You got to get over that. Well, what are you going to do with it? I remember when I went away to undergrad, University of Oklahoma, and 1968. My parents didn't have a dime. And I said to my mother, I said, am I going to meet up with any discrimination or racism, blah, blah, blah. And my mother said, I don't know. You may not. But you better not come home telling me you failed your studies because somebody called you a nigger. I can't afford that. I'm telling you now. In other words, that mindset and attitude, did I step on your toes? Well, baby, you need to move your feet. Get over it. Get over it. So, yeah, unfortunately, there is a whole class of individuals that we have got to pass that baton on. Some way, somehow, you got to know, here, the baton is coming, and you've got to grab it. When I interviewed John Johnson of Ebony Magazine, we were talking about success and leadership, and he used the analogy of a relay race. And he said to me, a relay race is not won or lost on how fast the runners are. A relay race is won or lost on how capable one runner can pass the baton from one to the next. And he went on to tell me right there in his office, he said, Black America, you got swift, capable runners. In lane number 1, Oprah Winfrey. In lane number 2, Colin Powell. In lane number 3, Earl Gray's publisher, Black Magazine. In lane number 4, whoever. Men and women who've run the race of their lives, now they're coming down, made the final turn, coming down the straightaway, holding this baton called success, leadership, and achievement. Ready to pass it on to the next generation, and you got to be fit, focused, ready to run the race of their lives. Now, Bill Cosby said what he said, or he could have said, listen, you look at me. Here I am, 53-year-old black man. Me, 53-year-old black man. And I remember when I was growing up, if you did not have a father at home, it was because of two reasons only. Number one, they were either killed in the Korean War or World War II. That was it. And in my generation, when I was growing up, I looked at my father, and I looked at all my father's brothers and all the uncles and male friends that my dad had. There was no equal opportunity. There was no multiculturalism. There was no EEOC. There was no cultural diversity. There was no affirmative action. There was none of that. But I never knew a black man out of work. And I don't care what you did between the hours of 9 to 5, everybody had a second job either working at the post office or you were a janitor at the public school up there. And you're telling me you can't make it now? So it's not so much what he said, it's how he said it. We talked about that dream and vision. They were all avid goal setters. All avid goal setters. I remember when I asked, again, going back to Ben Carson, I said, Dr. Carson, do you set goals and objectives? He said, yeah. I said, give me your shortest range. Give me your shortest objective. You know what he said to me? He said, I know exactly where I'll be in 15 years. Now, I remember when I interviewed Cynthia Cooper, WNBA superstar in Houston, Texas. And I said, my God, Coop, 3 times MVP, WNBA champ, the rings that you have. Come on, when did you get this idea? She said, I knew exactly what I want to be at age 8. She said to me, when she was 8 years old, she got on her knees and she said, Lord, if you give me a goal, you give me a dream, I promise you I will be the best. Avid goal setters. You are at your best when chasing a goal. Well, that was part of it. Reaching that objective. And they all had, different obstacles and roadblocks in their way. When I went to Baltimore, Maryland, and I interviewed Henry Parks of Parks Sausage, and we were talking about leadership and success, he said, in one hand, I have a dream. In the other hand, I have a vision. Which one gathers your attention? And then halfway through the interview, I guess I said something. He said, wait a minute, let's get one thing straight, young man. If I had half the opportunity you had, I'd be president of General Motors right now. So, they all had different obstacles and blah, blah, but they were just driven by that goal and objectives. Your goals must be believable. Your goals must be conceivable. Your goals must be achievable. And your goals must be measurable. What gets measured gets done. And that is a key to motivation. Motivation is an inside job. The only 2 traits about motivation. Number 1, you make a decision. You decide. You're not going to be motivated unless, number 1, you've made a decision. And number 2, after you made a decision, never allow an exception to occur. All right? You want to lose weight. You want to drop 30 pounds. So here we are, Friday, Saturday, whatever the day is. I made the decision. I'm losing 30 pounds. All right? That evening, you and your buddies get together. You want to go to a restaurant for dinner, right? So you have to go to Morton's or whatever, have a nice meal. Then they come whipping the dessert cart. What do you want for dessert? Nope. I made a decision. Never allow an exception to occur. Because when you look at success under the clear light of day, success is a statistical event. That's all it is. It is a statistical event. That's all it is, predicated on belief. Several years ago, I was brought in to speak to all the executive vice presidents, senior level VPs, Columbia Sony Records, down in Destin, Florida, for their retreat. Spent some time with them. After I had my 2-hour workshop, I got a chance to sit down with all these EVPs. And I said to them, man, I mean, look at, Beyonce Knowles and Destiny Child. What type of strategy did you guys pull together to put them at the top of, the Billboard 80? And they told me this story, blow you away. Don't you know in the early 1990s, Beyonce Knowles was feeling sorry for herself, about to just throw it all away. She said this, running here to dance lessons, doing this, doing that, singing for free. I'm tired of it. No one listens to us. Half the time we're in these halls and arenas, no one shows up. Forget it. Hey, this is beyond me. And I said, what happened? Who knows what the barriers and objectives are? They went on to tell me that her personal heroes were in Vogue. Remember in Vogue, the R&B group? The lowest point in her life, 1993. If you walked into Beyonce Knowles' bedroom, you couldn't even tell the color of the paint on the walls for all the In Vogue posters that she had, even on the ceiling. Lowest point in her life, she gets tickets back in Houston, and Vogue comes to town, has a concert. And she gets backstage passes. And there she is with tears coming out of her eyes, thinking her dream has gone beyond the boards. After they give the concert, sure enough, she goes backstage and she meets her personal heroes. And I said, what do they tell her? One word, believe.